Yeah. Okay, I received some interesting replies from my last video, and I totally understand it. But, you know, sometimes, and I've done this basically my whole adult life, especially since after my mission as a young man. I've studied the scriptures. I've held callings. I've, you know, experienced fatherhood and now grandfatherhood. Served mission, you know, other missions. Had some heavy duty callings, and it's my nature and my personality to call out when I see Babylon entering into the kingdom of God on earth. And I just, you know, I do it. Now, I get it. You can say, well, who are you to judge this? And that's a really good question. I'm really nobody. But I have felt driven and inspired to have this channel. I started it before COVID and had very few followers for quite some time. And that was okay. It gave me an opportunity to study and to present some things. So as we are hitting, in my opinion, the home stretch, we're in the, you know, the bottom of the ninth inning, in my opinion, as we're approaching Christ's second coming. And as things happen, there is a separation. It's scriptural. There is an apostasy. We have the parables, particularly the ones that Christ gave his last week of his earthly ministry as a mortal, half mortal, I guess. And those parables had to do with the kingdom, with the church, if you will. Parable of the 10 virgins, parable of the talents and the sheep and the goats. So, and we have the wheat and the tares, you know. I personally think the large and spacious building is within the church. Now, it does represent the world. We understand that, but it's to me, it's what the world or what the church has introduced from the world as Babylon. The mocking fingers are people that we would love and respect. So as I look, if I'm offensive, or I've on this last video I did, I've heard that I'm going into apostasy, that I'm leading people out of the church. I shouldn't be critical of anything that comes from the church. I'm judgmental, you know, this kind of thing. Which I can't really disagree with any of that, as far as if that's what people allow themselves to think and do. If they want to blame me, that's fine. But what I'm trying to do is have people focus on the restored gospel of Jesus Christ, and not all this bull that the world is introducing and that now is creeping into the church. Now, if you want to say that the church is perfect and that everything is perfect about it, you know, that's fine. And if you want to say that that nobody should criticize anything that comes with the church logo or from anything that's a subsidiary, you know, BYU or CES or any of the paid folks, that we shouldn't not just be critical, but we shouldn't point out that maybe that's a little not in line with the doctrine or the gospel of Jesus Christ. If you think that shouldn't happen, then I can guarantee you this is a place that you don't want to hang out. And that's, I totally understand that. I know my personality. I do. I know it. I've had it for a long, long time. I'm an old guy. And I've been this way. And in spite of that, the Lord's found that I've had, some pretty unique and interesting callings over the time. And I was that way before, during, and after. I remember one time as a stake president, well, I can't swear by this, but it was, I'll just say Elder Uchtdorf, because I can't remember if he was in the presidency or not. But Elder Uchtdorf came to our stake in Park City when I was presiding there as a stake president. And he said, just tell me straight, what's going on? He said, too often we don't get the real scoop. We get what people want us to hear. Everything's great, everything's wonderful, So I said, well, by then he somewhat knew me, and I told him, some of the things. One of the things I mentioned as a stake president at the time, we were getting all these people calling us up. You need to provide this, this many people from your stake to serve here and do this, and inner city missions and welfare assignments and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, who are these people? And so I told President Uchtdorf, or I'll say Elder Uchtdorf, because I like I said, I can't remember if he was in the presidency or not at that time. But I said, okay, if I'm presiding over this stake, and these people aren't my priesthood leaders, they're not an Area 70 who is carrying keys on assignment from the 12 to communicate with the stake president. If they're not that, they're just some random person, what's going on? And he goes, that's what we needed to hear. And he said, we're actually going to address that. And they did. And so it's not only in my personality, it's been my experience that we as the body, as the bride, if we feel like we have the influence of the Holy Ghost and we're living worthy of that, personally, I don't see anything wrong with saying this doesn't feel right, and express it. It's no disrespect. I'm not apostatizing. I'm not condemning the whole organization because of a few things that I've experienced and that I see, and many of you have too. There was way more comments that felt similar than didn't. But I just felt like I needed to address that a little bit with this last situation with this video that came out from the church that I thought was just totally ridiculous. But that's the cool thing about agency. You can shut this video off. You can never watch me again. You can go watch somebody else that tickles your ear a little bit. That's one thing probably that you'll get from this channel that you won't get from many others that are, come follow me or CES, that type. You'll probably never get offended with those. Where this one, this channel, for good or for bad, it'll make you think, and it'll get you grounded. Now, I wanted to, this leads into what I want to talk about today, and I spent way too much time on that. I'm sorry. But I want to go to Genesis 22, and I want to talk about stones and rocks. Stones and rocks. Stones and rocks. And it came to pass, I'm in Genesis 22, and it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham, and it's test or prove him, but tempt him is what we have in the King James Bible. tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. I love that. Abraham, I'm right here. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah. The land of Moriah, Mount Moriah. So this is the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Okay? So this is the first that it's actually not the first, but this is where we're getting this idea of a sacred site of bedrock, of the rock, of the foundation stone, if you will, that is in Jerusalem and on the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is Mount Moriah. Okay, so this is really about a stone, a bedrock stone. So we have that situation. Now, I also want, now this might not have taken place right there, but it is an interesting story. So we have Abraham, we have Isaac, and then we have Jacob, okay? And this all happens within a few chapters. And that's the line of the Abrahamic covenant, whether you like it or not, that's it, okay? And now I'm in Jacob, I'm in Genesis, and I'm in chapter 28. Genesis chapter 28, and I'm going to start in verse 10. And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went towards Haran. And he lightened upon a certain place and tarried there all night. Now, Beersheba, from my understanding, is south of Jerusalem, and Haran is north and east of Israel. Okay? So somewhere on his journey, which, you know, I don't know where this could be. It's a possibility it could be in Jerusalem, but I don't know. This interesting thing took place here. And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went towards Haran. And he lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night because the sun was set. And listen to this. And he took of the stones of that place and put them for his pillows. Now, I don't know about you, but I wonder how comfortable is that to use stones for pillows? There's some significance to this, and we'll get into that. And he took the stones of that place and put them for pillows and lay down in that place to sleep. Okay? And he dreamed and beheld a ladder set up on earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold the angels of God ascending and descending on it. Now, we've been told by President Nelson that the rungs or the steps of the ladder are the covenants that we make. And so, you know, the gateway covenant or ordinances access the covenant, and the ordinances are the rungs of the ladder, the steps of the ladder, and the beginning one is baptism, okay? And then we just boom, boom, boom. And it's a gateway to heaven. And they're going back and forth. This is so cool because this ties directly into the temple as we keep reading this, okay? And it all began with using stones for the pillow to rest your head, and that's where your dreams come from. Okay, here we go. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham, thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land whereon thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. Now look, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Jacob got the promise through Abraham. He cites it right there. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, to the east, to the north, and to the south. And in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. This is so awesome. And behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all places whither thou goest, and will bring thee again into this land. For I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of. Now, everything's tied to the land. Everything's tied to the land. And his head was on the pillow of rocks, connecting him directly to the land. I just think this is so significant. And Jacob, okay, I'm in verse 16 now. And Jacob awaked out of his sleep, and he said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. And he was afraid and said, how dreadful is this place? This is none other but the house of God. Okay, so this is significant, the house of God. So we're going to highlight that, the house of God, and see if it comes up again. And this is the gate of heaven, the house of God. What do we call the house of God? The temple. The temple. The temple. So we already have Abraham on Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount, where the bedrock is exposed. The rock is exposed, the foundation stone, right? And now we have this idea of Jacob laying on these stones. And that this allowed him to have this vision of this ladder of covenants up connecting us to heaven, but none other but the house of God. And this is the gate of heaven. The temple is the gate to heaven. And why? Because of the ordinances, because of the covenant, because of the covenant. And Jacob rose up early in the morning and took the stone. Okay, so he's going, dang, this is what connected me. He took the stone that he had put for the pillows and set it up for a pillar. This is so significant because for him, that he went, wow, this dream I had, this connection I have to heaven and the gateway to heaven came about as the pillow of stones. Okay. That he put for his pillows, and he set up for a pillar and poured oil upon the top of it. This is an ordination. This is a sanctification process of the earth, of the stones, and he poured oil on it, probably olive oil. And he called the name of that place Bethel. But the name of that city was called Luz at the first, or Luz. Now that typically is thought to be just a little bit north of Jerusalem, okay? So it's kind of hard to, because old Jerusalem was the city of David. So if you go a little bit north, it could be the Temple Mount. But now the Bethel and whatnot is just north of Jerusalem. So that's why I say, you know, for me, it would be really cool if it really identified Mount Moriah as where this took place as well. But I can't do that. But it's a possibility. So if you think of the stone is where his head was, and he anointed the stone because it connected to his head. So that's why we anoint the head, because it's connected to the stone, in my opinion. I think this is really cool. Okay. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God. And this stone, the stone that he slept on, that was his pillow, which I have set for a pillar, and then he made a pillar out of it, shall be God's house. That's what we call the temple. And And of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the 10th unto thee. So now we start the commandments. Well, we don't start them, but that's when he makes that covenant. And I just think this is, which is similar to us, that gateway covenant that we make, we begin to pay tithing. He just made that first rung, that covenant. And now he's becoming, my guess is that's probably similar to some type of a baptism, which is interesting because in the next chapter, that's where he meets Rachel at the well, Okay. So we have that aspect of the stone, right? Okay. So now we're going to go to First Chronicles, which is, this is really, really good. So we're in First Chronicles. Sorry. Okay, so First Chronicles. And we're in chapter 21. So First Chronicles chapter 21. And I'll start in verse 15. And God sent an angel unto Jerusalem to destroy it. And as he was destroying, the Lord beheld. And as he was destroying, the Lord beheld, and he repented him of the evil, and said to the angel that destroyed, It is enough. Stay now thy hand. And the angel of the Lord stood by the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. Okay, this is really critical. And David lifted up his eyes and saw the angel of the Lord stand between the earth and the heaven, having a drawn sword in his hand, stretched out over Jerusalem. He was going to wipe it out. Then David and the elders of Israel, who were clothed in sackcloth, they were in a repentant mode, fell upon their faces. And David said unto God, It is not I that commanded the people to be numbered. Is it not I? And this is a really cool story. I recommend you read it. Is it not I that have sinned and done evil indeed? But as for these sheep, what have they done? He's saying, take it out on me. Don't take it out on the people. I pray thee, O Lord my God, be on me and my father's house, but not on the people, that they should be plagued. Then the angel of the Lord commanded Gad to say to David that David should go up and set up an altar unto the Lord in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. Now this is the place where Abraham was asked to sacrifice Isaac. It's Mount Moriah. It's the same place. And David went up at the saving of Gad, which he spake in the name of the Lord. And Ornan turned back and saw the angel and his 4 sons with him and hid themselves. Now Ornan was threshing wheat. So this foundation stone, or this bedrock stone, was exposed on Mount Moriah. It would be flat. It would be somewhat smooth in order to thresh it. Now, here's an interesting thing. Underneath the Dome of the Rock, which is where most people think this outcropping of rock is, that's mentioned here, that David purchased, it's not smooth. It's very rough. And it really doesn't qualify as a threshing floor or a stone or a bedrock that would have been used anciently. But if you go just north of the Dome of the Rock, there's another little canopy, if you will, that is covering another segment of bedrock that is smooth and flat. And it lines up perfectly with the east gate, the gold gates of the Temple Mount that are walled up. Okay? These are the gates where Christ is going to enter from the Mount of Olives to the east, and he's going to go through those gates into his temple. Well, that exposed portion that has a little canopy over it that's just north of the Dome of the Rock could be a very good candidate for that threshing floor. It's smooth. So they'd put the wheat on there. They'd drag rocks or wood that had rocks implanted in them, and they would go over the stalks of wheat and it would break out the kernel out. And then being up exposed like that, the wind would blow the chaff away. And then the stalks would be gathered to use for bedding, for hay, or not straw for the animals, right? And bedding and whatnot. And then the kernel, the staff of life, the bread of life, the sustenance of life is in that little kernel that has to be beaten, thrashed, and on the Temple Mount, where the temple is going to be built, where the Holy of Holies once was. Look at the symbolism in all this. We have to be that wheat. We have to be roughed up. We have to have all the stuff knocked off us so that we can have some value and be the bread of life in the sense of being like our Heavenly Father and His Son, Jesus Christ. And that happens where? The threshing floor, which is the temple, the foundation of Solomon's temple. That's where Solomon built the temple, was the threshing floor. Because then, if you go to 2 Chronicles chapter 3, 2 Chronicles chapter 3, listen to this. Because David, he messed up and he wasn't able to build the temple, but his son Solomon. Then Solomon, this is 2 Chronicles chapter 3. Then Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah. So there we go. There's the connection with Abraham sacrificing Isaac. We have the cool story about the stones, the foundation stone, the pillows for Jacob. Or he was going to, where Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac. I think I said Jacob. But he was going to sacrifice Isaac. And then we have Jacob having his dream, which we don't know exactly where that took place, but that's pretty cool. And it did include a stone. Then Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, Mount Moriah, where the Lord appeared unto David his father in the place that David had prepared, the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. Boom, there it is. There it is. So we have to know that it's bedrock. It's this flat surface where the wheat can be thrashed and separated. And that wheat's us. And the temple and the ordinances do that for us. Okay? So fascinating. Now, there's just so many good things here, but we'll skip to a couple of other things in talking about stones or rocks. Christ is known as a stone of stumbling. It's in the Book of Mormon. Can't remember, might be 2nd Nephi. And he's a stone of stumbling. A stone of stumbling. We don't typically think of stumbling when it comes to Christ. But with his doctrine and his ways, it can cause us to stumble. Because we have to give up what we want and do what he wants. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. but he's a stone of stumbling. And he was to the Jews. He was a stone of stumbling. They had their traditions. They had their pomp. They had their priests and you know, all the things that came along with that. Their high and holy, excuse me, callings. And he was a stumbling block to them, a stone of stumbling. Okay. Let's look at Matthew 7:25 and see what that has to say about a stone or a rock. Okay. Let's look at all these examples. Let's see, where was I? And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. Just like the temple. So our homes should be like the temple, founded on the rock, the bedrock. Okay, all right, I love that. While we're in Matthew, let's go to Matthew 16. Matthew 16. This is one that I think is a little bit misinterpreted by us in the church, but you know, it's just me. Matthew 16:18. And I say unto thee, Peter, that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Now, we always say, oh, that's the rock of Revelation, which it is. There's no question. But it's also Peter, because Peter was the chief apostle. It's the authority. It's the authority to receive revelation for the church. And upon you, Peter, for this time period, and upon this rock, authority, I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. So we think of the temple, and we think of it being put on that foundation. We think of our homes being built, not on a sandy foundation, but on a foundation of stone, okay, of rock. Upon this rock, I will build my church, or the ordinances in the temple. Think of it that way as well. So that's really good. Okay, we can go to one in the Doctrine and Covenants. This is really good. I think it's verse 6, or section 6. Yeah. Therefore, fear not, little flock. Okay, this is section 6, verse 34. Therefore, fear not, little flock, do good. Let earth and hell combine against you. For if ye are built upon my rock, they cannot prevail. Okay? So not just the rock of revelation, but the rock of authority to participate in the ordinances, in making covenants with our Heavenly Father. So this is really good. Okay. We could go to 1 Samuel and talk about David as a young boy. He picked 5 smooth stones to defeat the Philistines by defeating Goliath, right? Which really set David to be that warrior king that was needed, that Israel needed at that time. Okay. Then let's think of other stones. We could go to John 8:7, I think it is. He who is without sin cast the first stone. Now stones are in a different light. But are they? Okay. He who is without sin, let him cast the first stone. Now this is a different element. Let's think of Stephen. I think that's in Acts chapter 7, where he was stoned. He was stoned. He was martyred for his testimony of Jesus Christ. And what was used to stone him? To kill him? Stones. Stones. He proved his discipleship by being stoned. Dang, this is really, really good. If you go to Matthew 24, it's like our favorite chapter, right? Matthew 24, what does Christ say about the temple? What's his prophecy about the temple? There won't be one stone of the buildings. Now you got to read that carefully, because some say the western wall is, the stones are still stacked up, and so that can't be the temple site, because the wall's still there. No, that's just the wall of the platform, of the Temple Mount platform. It wasn't part of the buildings. And in Matthew 24, it's specific that Christ says, look at the buildings. Look at the buildings. There's not going to be one stone of those buildings, one on top of the other. And that's exactly what the Romans did. At 72 AD, I think? Not one stone upon each other when it comes to the temple. Really significant. Our bodies, our physical bodies, are going to be laid in the ground, and they're going to just rot and deteriorate. But because of Jesus Christ, we're going to be resurrected. And that temple that was destroyed and not one stone totally annihilated, just like our bodies will, that temple is going to be resurrected. And Christ is going to rule from that temple for his millennial reign. Now tell me that isn't the coolest thing. So the temple is our body. It's our history. And in that particular case, it was destroyed because of the wickedness of the people, and to set the example of what we need to go through. Our physical bodies are going to be destroyed. And without Christ, that would be the end. Without Christ, when that temple was destroyed by Rome, that would have been the end of the covenant. But it's not. It's not. Okay, now one last thing about a stone. I think it's Matthew 28, 2, as well as the other Gospels. But the stone was rolled away. The stone was rolled away. And these stones have pins locking that thing in. And that stone was rolled away, not to let Christ out, but so that we could look in and see that he's not there anymore. He's not in that tomb, which gives us the promise that we're not going to be in the tomb forever, in eternity. So these are all interesting and wonderful things to think about. Stones, rocks, and I hope we can, as we study the scriptures, we can look at these two words, stones and rocks, and or a rock, and see how that applies to our life, and in every aspect, both connecting us to heaven, as it did Jacob as he laid on the pillow of rocks, as the stone foundation of the temple on the Temple Mount, Mount Moriah, as being stoned for the cause of Christ, and as the stone being rolled away, revealing the resurrected Lord. Love you all. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.